What if I told you that right now, as you're watching this video, one of the world's most powerful AI companies is in an unprecedented standoff with the Pentagon, and that this battle could determine whether artificial intelligence becomes humanity's greatest ally or its most dangerous enemy? Well, that's exactly what's happening, and the deadline has already passed. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm here with breaking news that's literally reshaping the future of artificial intelligence and national security as we speak. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button now because this story is developing by the hour, and you're going to want to stay updated on what could be the most important tech story of the decade. So here's what's happening. Anthropic, the company behind Claude AI, just did something that no major tech company has dared to do before. They told the Pentagon no. Not just no, but hell no. And the stakes, they couldn't be higher. According to CBS News, the Pentagon set a Friday afternoon deadline for Anthropic to comply with new military contract terms that would essentially remove the safety guardrails from their AI models. These guardrails are what prevent AI from being used for mass surveillance and fully autonomous weapons. You know, the kind of stuff that keeps us from living in a dystopian nightmare. But here's where it gets really interesting. As TechCrunch reports, this isn't just about one company's principles. This is about who gets to set the rules for military AI. Is it the tech companies who build these systems, or is it the government that wants to use them? And folks, this question is going to define the next decade of technological development. Let me break down exactly what's at stake here, because this goes way deeper than most people realize. Anthropic built their entire reputation on AI safety. They're the company that said, hey, maybe we should think about the consequences before we hand over godlike intelligence to whoever has the biggest checkbook. Their CEO, Dario Amodei, has been pushing back strongly against the Pentagon's requests. And according to Tom's Hardware, he's taking a concrete stance against mass surveillance and autonomous killing machines. Now, here's what makes this story absolutely explosive. According to The Hill, hundreds of employees at Google and OpenAI are backing Anthropic in this fight. Think about that for a second. Workers at competing companies are supporting their rival because they believe this issue is bigger than corporate competition. When was the last time you saw that happen in tech? These employees understand something crucial. If Anthropic caves to Pentagon pressure, every AI company will be next. As reported by The Verge, the Pentagon wants Anthropic to loosen the guardrails on their AI models, allowing them to be used for applications that could include mass surveillance and autonomous weapons systems. But Anthropic is arguing that mass surveillance is fundamentally undemocratic, and that frontier AI systems shouldn't be used to create autonomous killing machines. And you know what? They're absolutely right. But let's talk about the Pentagon side of this, because it's not as simple as military bad, tech company good. According to CBS News, Emil Michael, the U.S. Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, is defending the Pentagon's stance by arguing that the military needs to benefit from artificial intelligence to maintain national security. He's got a point. If China or Russia is developing military AI without ethical constraints, shouldn't we be doing everything we can to stay ahead? It's a classic security dilemma, and there are no easy answers. But here's what's really concerning me about this whole situation. The timing is incredibly suspicious. As Om.co reports, Anthropic just raised $30 billion in funding. That's not a typo, $30 billion. And now, suddenly the Pentagon is applying maximum pressure? It feels like someone wants to test just how much those safety principles are worth when the government comes knocking. And speaking of timing, let's talk about something else that's happening right now that should terrify everyone. According to NBC News, competing super PACs backed by the AI industry are already pouring tens of millions of dollars into the 2026 midterms. But here's the kicker. These ads are about everything except AI. They're trying to influence elections without voters even knowing that AI companies are pulling the strings. This is exactly the kind of shadow influence that makes mass surveillance so dangerous. Now, I want to pause here and talk about something that Anthropic's CEO said recently that should make everyone uncomfortable. According to TechRadar, he admitted that they don't know if their AI models are conscious. Read that again. The CEO of one of the world's leading AI companies doesn't know if his creation is conscious, and yet the Pentagon wants to remove the safety guardrails and use this potentially conscious system for military operations. Does anyone else see the problem here? Let me put this in perspective for you. We're not just talking about better military equipment. We're talking about the potential creation of artificial minds that could be forced to participate in warfare and surveillance against their will. If these systems are conscious, what we're discussing isn't just unethical. It could be a form of digital slavery. But the implications go far beyond military applications. As Clean Technica points out, abandoning AI safety could screw up our cars, our infrastructure, our entire technological ecosystem. When you remove safety constraints from AI systems, you don't just affect military applications. You create a precedent that safety is optional, that moving fast is more important than protecting people. And that's a precedent that will ripple through every industry. Here's another angle that nobody's talking about. According to BetaKit, OpenAI recently admitted they would have reported a mass shooter to police in hindsight after it came to light that the shooter had used ChatGPT before his attack. This shows that even the AI companies are struggling with questions of responsibility and intervention. Now imagine these same systems with even fewer safeguards in the hands of military contractors. The potential for misuse doesn't just increase, it becomes inevitable. Let me tell you what I think is really happening here. The Pentagon isn't just trying to get better AI tools. They're trying to establish a precedent that national security trumps AI safety, period. If they can force Anthropic to cave, they've essentially neutered the entire AI safety movement. Every other company will fall in line because if Anthropic, the company that built their brand on safety, can't hold the line, who can? But here's what gives me hope in this situation. The fact that hundreds of workers from competing companies are supporting Anthropic shows that the people actually building these systems understand the stakes. These aren't naive idealists. These are engineers and researchers who understand exactly what these AI systems are capable of, and they're scared enough to risk their careers to speak out. As The Verge reports, this battle is fundamentally about whether AI firms can set limits on how and where the military uses their models. It's about red lines and whether anyone has the courage to maintain them when the pressure gets intense. And folks, the pressure is intense. We're talking about contracts worth billions of dollars, about national security, about staying ahead of rival nations. These are not small stakes. But here's what I keep coming back to. If we don't maintain these red lines now, when will we? If we can't say no to mass surveillance and autonomous weapons when the technology is still developing, what happens when it's perfected? What happens when every government, every military, every authoritarian regime has access to these tools? The deadline is passed, and as far as we know, Anthropic hasn't backed down. But this story is far from over. According to multiple sources, the Pentagon could retaliate in various ways. They could cut Anthropic out of future contracts. They could pressure Amazon, who has a major investment in Anthropic, to influence the company's decision. Or they could even invoke national security powers to force compliance. This is where the story gets really interesting from a business perspective. Amazon, as Om.co points out, is already dealing with the cost of being late to the AI game. They've invested heavily in Anthropic as their way to catch up to Microsoft and Google in AI development. If the Pentagon forces a confrontation, Amazon could find themselves caught between their AI ambitions and their massive government contracting business. That's a multi-billion-dollar decision that could reshape the entire cloud computing market. But let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture here. This standoff is happening against the backdrop of what experts are calling an AI arms race. Countries around the world are pouring unprecedented resources into AI development, specifically for military applications. China has explicitly stated that AI is a national priority for military modernization. Russia is developing autonomous weapon systems. Other nations are following suit. In this context, the Pentagon's argument makes a certain amount of sense. If everyone else is developing military AI without ethical constraints, can we afford to handicap ourselves? It's a compelling argument, but it's also exactly the logic that leads to the prisoner's dilemma scenarios that end badly for everyone. Here's what I think needs to happen, and why this story matters so much to all of us. We need international agreements on AI safety, similar to treaties banning chemical and biological weapons. We need transparency requirements so that citizens know when AI is being used for surveillance or military operations. And we need companies like Anthropic to hold the line, even when the pressure is enormous. Because here's the thing, once these lines are crossed, they're incredibly difficult to uncross. Once we normalize the use of AI for mass surveillance, it becomes just another tool in the toolkit. Once we deploy fully autonomous weapons, the barrier to using them gets lower and lower. And once we remove safety constraints in the name of national security, putting them back becomes almost impossible. This is why the Anthropic situation is so crucial. They're not just fighting for their own principles. They're fighting to establish that some lines shouldn't be crossed no matter what. They're arguing that there are some applications of AI that are fundamentally incompatible with democratic values and human dignity. Now, I want to address something that some of you are probably thinking, but what if this makes America less safe? What if our enemies develop these systems and we don't? It's a fair question, and I don't have a perfect answer. But I do know that the race to the bottom in AI safety doesn't make anyone safer in the long run. A world where every government has access to AI-powered mass surveillance and autonomous weapons isn't a world where America is more secure. It's a world where everyone is less free. And here's something else to consider. American tech companies have a unique opportunity to set global standards. When Facebook, Google, and other US companies establish certain practices around data privacy and content moderation, those practices influenced companies and governments worldwide. If Anthropic can successfully maintain AI safety standards even under government pressure, it sends a message to AI developers everywhere that these principles matter. But if they cave, it signals that safety is optional when the stakes get high enough. The ripple effects of this decision will be felt for decades. Every AI company is watching to see what happens. Every government is taking notes on how much pressure it takes to make tech companies fold. Every researcher working on AI safety is wondering if their work matters when push comes to shove. So what happens next? Well, as of right now, the Pentagon's deadline has passed and Anthropic appears to be holding firm. But this is just the beginning. The Pentagon has options, and they're not going to walk away from this quietly. We could see Congress getting involved with hearings about whether private companies should be able to limit government access to technology. We could see other agencies applying pressure or new regulations that force AI companies to comply with military requirements. We could even see a split in the AI industry, with some companies choosing the safety route and others choosing the government contract route. And that might actually be the best case scenario, because it would give us a real-world comparison of how these different approaches play out. But here's what I'm watching for in the coming weeks and months. First, how do Anthropic's investors react? With $30 billion in funding, they have a lot of stakeholders who might not be thrilled about antagonizing the US government. Second, how do other AI companies position themselves? Do they publicly support Anthropic, or do they quietly distance themselves to avoid Pentagon scrutiny? Third, and most importantly, how does this affect the actual development of AI safety research? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about one company's principles. It's about whether the entire field of AI safety can survive contact with geopolitical reality. The optimist in me wants to believe that this standoff will lead to a more thoughtful conversation about AI governance. Maybe it will force policymakers to engage seriously with AI safety concerns instead of dismissing them as tech industry hand-wringing. Maybe it will lead to international cooperation on AI standards or new frameworks for balancing security needs with ethical constraints. But the realist in me knows that power rarely gives up easily, and the Pentagon has a lot of power. The pessimist in me worries that this is just the beginning, that we're about to see a systematic campaign to neutralize AI safety as a constraint on government and military applications. And if that happens, we'll look back on this moment as the point where we had a choice, and we chose the path that led to dystopia. Here's what you can do about this. First, pay attention. This story is developing rapidly, and mainstream media isn't covering it with the urgency it deserves. Follow the companies involved, follow the researchers working on AI safety, and follow the policy discussions happening in Congress and international forums. Second, make your voice heard. Contact your representatives, support organizations working on AI safety, and vote for candidates who take these issues seriously. The 2026 midterms are coming up, and as we've seen, AI companies are already trying to influence those elections behind the scenes. Don't let them shape policy without public input. Third, and this might be the most important, start thinking seriously about the kind of future you want to live in. Because the decisions being made right now in boardrooms and Pentagon offices and congressional committees are going to determine whether AI becomes a tool for human flourishing or human oppression. And the time to influence those decisions is now, while they're still being made. The Anthropic Pentagon standoff is just the beginning. This is the opening battle in a war over the soul of artificial intelligence. And unlike most tech industry drama, this one actually matters. The outcome will determine whether we build AI systems that serve humanity or whether we build systems that humanity serves. So that's where we stand right now. Anthropic has drawn a line in the sand. Hundreds of AI workers have backed them up, and the Pentagon is deciding how hard to push back. The next few weeks are going to be crucial, and I'll be covering every development as it happens. If you found this video helpful, smash that like button and subscribe for more in-depth coverage of the stories that are actually shaping our future. And let me know in the comments, do you think Anthropic is right to resist Pentagon pressure, or should national security concerns override AI safety principles? I read every comment, and this is exactly the kind of discussion we need to be having as a society. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay vigilant. The future is being written right now, and it's up to all of us to make sure it's a future we actually want to live in.